Boker Tov, Chaverim. Welcome, my friends, and good morning. I am recording once again from the rivers of, well, actually, the waters of Lake Texoma. I am being held captive here at the Interfaith Retreat, and I'm here to lament with the psalmist. By the waters of Texoma, where we sat down, and there we wept when we remembered Denton. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No, anyway, having a great time here with people, learning a lot, teaching a lot, having some fabulous conversations with colleagues, helping seminarians understand the ordeal of civility that is required of religion here in America, and that's all for today. So our Torah portion for this week is Bo from the book of Exodus. I believe it's the third from the book of Exodus. And our Haftarah portion to go with it is from the prophet Jeremiah. Now, this particular passage is very much like our prior passage, an opportunity to say nasty things about Egypt. We, of course, in our Torah portion, we are experiencing uh, the plagues. We continue the journey towards freedom, and Egypt is playing its role as the wicked foil that is preventing us from achieving our freedom. Now, in Jeremiah's time, we talked last time about Ezekiel. Jeremiah is effectively the, I don't know, the elder prophet before Ezekiel. Ezekiel is probably a child or a young person when he is taken into the exile of Babylon. Jeremiah is an old man at this point, and quite frankly, he is dragged unwillingly in the different direction. Refugees fleeing from Nebuchadnezzar's conquest of Jerusalem have fled into Egypt, into the jurisdiction of Egypt. And as he reports, Jeremiah himself, against his own wishes, is dragged into that exile there, but at least it's not a conquest. Presumably, our Jeremiah died in Egypt, living in exile. A kind of Trotsky experience for him. In any case, Jeremiah, the second of our most significant prophets, we have Isaiah, the longest, Jeremiah, the second longest, Ezekiel, the third longest of the major prophets, each one of them a southern prophet, each one of them also a priest, each one of them addressing the crisis of the 7th and 6th centuries, the conflicts between the rising Mesopotamian empires and poor southern kingdom who keeps getting trapped in conflicts between it and Egypt. Now, Jeremiah has a slightly different take because he's talking about a time actually before Ezekiel. It's the time when the Judean kingdom has made an alliance with Egypt and is relying on Egypt with its presumably potent imperial power to back Judah up should the Babylonians invade. Jeremiah is the guy who figures out that's a mistake. That Egypt is a paper tiger, that it's not going to fulfill its promises, and he warns the Israelites desperately against the Judeans. I shouldn't say Israelites, the Judeans. So they are Israelites. Okay. So the Israelites who are Judeans, warning them desperately against an alliance with Egypt because it will only provoke Babylon, and better to be a neutral independent and rely on God and our own willingness to accommodate the major empires pressing against us rather than trying to take sides. And of course, he was right. A good short-term profit, he recognizes that this was a losing strategy, and that's exactly what happens. So he unfortunately lives to see his insight fulfilled, and he sees the disappointment of what happens. However, always our Southern prophets recognize that in a situation of crisis, it's not enough to say, I told you so, but in fact, he also offers words of comfort that being caught in the vice between Egypt and Babylon is not an inevitable end to the Jewish people, to the experiment of Torah. It will continue. Why? As the one verse I'm going to share with you from chapter 28 of the Haftarah, it's simply this: Have no fear, O Jacob, my servant, for I am with you, says the Eternal One. Now, pretty straightforward, nothing much to say about that except for the image of Jacob, my servant. This is an important term that appears not only in Jeremiah, but it also appears in Isaiah. It's used repeatedly. Jacob, my servant, Israel, my beloved. This image is repeated over and over again, and it becomes important in understanding sometimes the polemical rhetoric that goes on between Christians and Jews that has gone on for the last 2,000 years. So let me set the stage. What we're talking about is Isaiah 53, which is known as the suffering servant passage. For Christians, this is the most essential prophecy. It is understood that the figure of the servant in the poem, who is afflicted, who suffers on behalf of the world, on behalf of the nations, who doesn't merit his suffering, and endures what appears to be death and recovery, that this is a prediction of Jesus of Nazareth, the founder, the most important figure in Christian tradition. And for Christians, it is so self-evident that Isaiah 53 is referring to Jesus. But as a Jew, as a reader of the Bible in context, I can only point out that the phrase "my servant" almost inevitably refers to not to some individual in the far future, but to the people Israel, the Jewish people, Jacob, my servant, Israel, my servant. This is the meaning of that phrase. So when Isaiah, who is not in our Haftarah, just to be clear, is talking about a servant who suffers, he's talking about us. And in some ways, the passage in Isaiah is intertextual to our Haftarah and Jeremiah. These two passages are addressing a similar notion, and that is that the Jewish people will suffer. We do suffer. But in fact, that suffering is not just the afflictions of a random world, that in fact it heralds something better. And therefore, when we suffer, as Jeremiah says, don't be afraid. God is with us. The phrase in Isaiah is Im Manuel. God is with us. And so Emmanuel doesn't refer to Jesus, it refers to us. And we are the suffering people whose redemption shows to the world the possibilities beyond simply the next miserable thing to happen in history. And we've defied the expectation that we will disappear, be crushed, fade from history. It never happens. And if Jesus is, for the Christians, the dying and resurrected Messiah, we, the Jewish people, are the dying and resurrected people. Jeremiah knows this, and we should live with his confidence because it has proved to be true throughout the centuries. Well, that's it for me here at wonderful Texoma, and I look forward to sharing Haftarah next week.